Hey guys, what's going on? It's Saturday night. It's Mr. Eric Reads. We're back with another installment. Got a good book tonight. It's by Loren Long. It's called Otis and the Kittens, because who doesn't love cats? I'm just kidding. But anywho, so tonight, Loren Long with Otis and the Kittens on Mr. Eric Reads. I don't know which one I want to do better. You guys like when I go like Mr. Eric Reads? Or do the... Think about it. Anywho, it was a hot and dry day on the farm where little friendly Otis lived. He was our friendly tractor. Now Otis couldn't remember the last time it had rained. Farmers all over the valley grew more and more anxious by the day. Water was in short supply, the ground was hard, and the corn stalks were half as tall as they should have been. Otis spent his afternoons out in the sweltering fields with the farm hands baling straw. Once the load was full, with a puff and a chug, Otis would pull the wagon into the old barn down by the bend at Mud Creek. The farmhands would use a pulley to lift each bale into the loft, where it would be stored for the long winter to come. When the sun had gone over the hill and the work was done, Otis was ready to sit in the shade and rest. But not Otis's friend, the bull. The bull liked to stand in front of Otis and snort and snarl and huff hot air. Two snorts, a snarl, and a huff. All the animals knew what that meant. The bull was challenging Otis to a tug of war. Well, Otis just smiled. His friends were always eager to play, even after a long, hard day. One duck wound the end of the rope around the bull's horn, and another duck looped the other end around Otis's steering wheel. The animals then took sides, grabbing on any way that they could. Everyone pulled and tugged with all their might. Eventually, Otis would ease up a little bit. He didn't care much about winning. He just liked having fun with his friends. One afternoon, when everyone was up under the shade of the apple tree, Otis spotted something moving down in the field. Hey, that looked like an orange tabby cat, he thought. Where did she come from, he wondered. He watched as she ran towards the old barn, and then he saw something that caused his engine to sputter. It was smoke. Otis raced down to the barn with his friends, and the animals followed behind. They discovered the flames were coming from the loft inside the old barn. It was a fire. The barn was filled with brittle, dry straw, and Otis knew that it wouldn't take long for everything to burst into flames. Just then, the tabby cat appeared in the barn window. With a putt, puff, puffy, puff, chuff, Otis rushed into the burning barn. Inside, the flames were growing and the smoke was forming a dark cloud. The cat was pacing back and forth higher and higher above the rafters. Otis chuffed for her to come down, but the cat wouldn't budge. Instead, she just stared down at Otis and belted out the loudest meow Otis had ever heard. Otis kept thinking, what is she trying to tell me? Suddenly, Otis heard a tiny meow from the hayloft, and then another tiny meow, and then another, and another, and another. All at once, 5 furry little heads popped up and stared down at him. They were kittens. As the flames blazed overhead, Otis stood on his hind wheels and stretched to the edge of the loft. To the chorus of tiny meows, one by one, the kittens hopped down. The farm animals cheered as Otis emerged from the burning barn with the kittens all over him. But as soon as Mama Cat counted their little heads, she meowed frantically back at the barn. This time, Otis had no doubt what she was saying. How many more were still in there, he wondered. By then, the top of the barn was all the way engulfed in flames, sending huge plumes of smoke into the sky. Otis was afraid, but he gunned his engine and he screeched his tires and he dashed back into that burning barn. Inside, the heat was growing worse and it was becoming harder to breathe. Otis revved his engine, and the one last little head popped up, trembling with fear. Otis puffed a gentle and the kitten climbed down on top of him, hopped into his seat, leapt to the floor, and scampered out of the barn safely. Outside, the animals cheered when they saw another kitten emerge, and they watched for Otis to follow with excitement. But inside, the flames spread by the second. Otis wheeled around to see if there were any more kittens left. The old boards of the barn's floor creaked, buckled, and moaned. The walls popped. He couldn't wait another second. Just as Otis spotted his exit and he raced, his wheels were about to leave, there was a giant crash. The floor collapsed, and Otis plunged into the darkness below. Outside, the animals held their breath, waiting for their friend to emerge. Inside, Otis couldn't move. He had fallen into the cluttered lower level of the old barn, and he was covered in dust, debris, and broken planks of wood. Stuck in the hole with the fire raging above, Otis could hardly puff a breath. Then he heard the siren of Chief Douglas and his fire engine. The farmer had pulled up, and Otis heard him rounding up the animals. Help had arrived. He knew he'd be fine until he heard Chief Douglas holler. I'm sorry, farmer. The creek's gone dry. In this drought, the water supply's too low to save your old barn. As long as everyone's safe, we're going to have to let her burn. Underneath the pile of broken boards and dust, Otis couldn't see a thing or move a gasket, and his heart sank deep inside his engine. The animals had grown wild with fear. The farmer counted them one by one. Then they were all safe and sound, and he couldn't figure out why they were acting so crazy. Suddenly, the little calf bolted for the barn door, and her friends followed right behind. Inside the fiery barn, they spotted Otis stuck in the hole, covered in boards and dust. His engine was barely running. How could they ever get him out? The bull looked up at the raptors and down at Otis. He stood in front of the hole in the floor and snorted and snarled and huffed hot air. 2 snorts, a snarl, and a huff? The animals knew exactly what that meant. One duck grabbed the pulley rope and wound it around the bull's horn. Another duck flew down into the hole and hooked it up to Otis' steering wheel. The bull snorted and tugged and snarled and pulled. But Otis didn't budge. The horse and the cow grabbed the rope behind the bull, and together they snorted, tugged, and neighed, and moved, and pulled, and Otis teetered ever so slightly. The little calf jumped in and tugged and bawed and pulled, and Otis raised up a little bit more. The puppy grabbed the rope behind the little calf, and with a fierce "Arr, arr, arr," he tugged and pulled and growled as Otis inched upward. And then came the piercing meow and the sound of Fire Chief Douglas shouting, "Holy moly! Otis is in there! Hold on tight, everybody! We're here to help!" Fire Chief Douglas grabbed the end of the rope and tugged and pulled and tugged. All together, the animals, the fire chief, and all the firemen lifted Otis higher and higher until he was suspended above the hole in the ground. The duck swooped in and pushed him over the edge to the opening where he could be lowered onto the floor. Together, everyone pulled the dust and ash-covered tractor out of the burning fire just as parts of the barn began to fall. Then Fire Chief Douglas and his men hosed off Otis and wiped down his frame. The cool water revived Otis, and everyone cheered when they heard the faint It was music to their ears. The kittens jumped up on top of Otis and crawled all over him. Fire Chief Douglas laughed and said, "Farmer, what say we adopt these kittens into mama? They'd make a mighty fine addition to our firehouse family." Otis puffed a happy puff. He couldn't have thought of a better home for his new friends. The end. Otis and the Kittens, by Loren Long. Saturday night, Mr. Eric Reads. Hope you've had a wonderful week. Hope you had a wonderful start to your weekend. Continue, guys, to sign in once it comes back to Monday for our Learn at Home. Continue to enjoy the weekend. I will be back tomorrow afternoonish with our pre-K kindergarten read and another book tomorrow night. I told my family that I'm thinking about issuing a challenge that the minute one of our videos goes to like 1,000 views, I'll shave my head or shave my beard or just leave a mustache. I don't know. I'm thinking about having some fun with it. So if you think that'd be a good idea or you'd like to see it, drop a comment below. Let me know. They won't be happy, but it'll be funny. So that's all I got tonight, guys. I miss y'all so much, man. I hope y'all are taking care of yourselves. I hope you're well. Wash those hands. Stay safe. And I'll see you guys again.